2012 was an unprecedented year for gaming, being the year we got huge heavy hitters like Borderlands 2, Mass Effect 3, Diablo 3, Journey, Persona 4 Golden, Sleeping Dogs, Hotline Miami, CSGO, Skullgirls, and even the ever-esteemed Candy Crush Saga.
Sweet.
And while I might have a deep love for Kingdoms of Amalur, I'd be hard-pressed to say any game of that year had the same impact as Dishonored. Dishonored is truly a genre-defining game. Before Dishonored came out, the only mainline game/series I could think of that were actually stealth-based were Metal Gear Solid and Hitman. No, we don't count Assassin's Creed. But unlike the previously mentioned games, Dishonored was more than just a stealth game. See, it belongs to a genre known as the immersive sim, whereas most games simply aim to get the most out of their mechanics for the best gameplay possible. An immersive sim aims to make the world you play through feel truly alive, with NPCs having natural sounding conversations while you're not engaging with them.
How goes it? I've been better. I hope things get better. Bye. Goodbye.
Or through simple things like making sure a home would have a bathroom because, well, of course it would. But most importantly, in my opinion, the defining aspect of an immersive sim is your actions having an impact on the environment and or story. And while the genre has been a thing since 1992 with Ultima Underworld, the Stygian Abyss, the game that was by far the largest influence for today's topic was Thief. Just a cursory glance between Thief and Dishonored, and the inspiration is obvious. Nothing makes for a better stealth game than a living, breathing world, and with the help of Harvey Smith, a man who worked on basically nothing but immersive sims, including the Thief series, Arcane Studios sets out and releases what is quite possibly the most well-known stealth game to have ever released. But that was 12 years ago. Does Dishonored still hold up? What exactly did people love about it so much? Well, let's take a moment and go over it. Also, just going to take a quick moment here and ask you to press the subscribe button. It helps out the channel a ton, and it means a lot to me. Thank you, and back to the video. In this game, we play as Corvo, royal protector of the Empress to Dunwall. As we start our adventure, we're riding a boat on our way back from some important mission the Empress had sent us on. As we ride this really cool Disney Park water elevator, we arrive at Dunwall Tower, home of the royal family. As we set foot on the island, we are instantly greeted by the daughter of the Empress, Emily, and given a big ol' hug. Aww. After which, she asks if we would like to spend some time playing hide and seek, but I hate children, so I decline her offer and get back to work. As I begin my climb up to the Empress, I'm greeted by the most obviously evil man ever seen in existence, and for some reason, he seems concerned that the Empress's bodyguard has returned 2 days early from his trip.
Corvo, 2 days early, full of surprises. As usual.
As we climb up the stairs with Emily in hand, we greet Jessamine and hand her a letter. It seems there's a plague happening, and unfortunately, the letter didn't contain any good news on how we might combat it. Still, the Empress seems hopeful, and then... we're able to fend off the assassins who are using strange powers for a bit, but eventually we're overwhelmed, and sadly, we can do nothing but watch as the Empress is stabbed through her stomach in front of us and Emily is dragged away. As we recover our wits and hold Jessamine in her final moments, we're approached by the totally not evil bad guy, where he surprisingly turns out to be evil and accuses us of being the killer and has us arrested. Once that intro is done, we wake up in a prison cell with a guard dropping off our meal. As we take a bite of our delicious bread, we find a key for our cell, my favorite side dish for any meal, along with a note from an unknown group saying they wish to help us escape. As this is the beginning of the game, our options are quite limited. Mainly, we can go in and kill everyone, or we can attempt to sneak around with the very first hurdle being these 3 guards. There's not a good chance to sneak above them as I look around, but if we just wait, they do eventually all turn their backs and we put them on the snooze express and drop them off in our old cell out of the way. Doing this a few more times, we continue on, grabbing ourselves a gun. Oh boy, this is useless, and a healing potion, also not super useful. So, if you've watched my previous Dishonored 2 video, you know I like to do what is called a ghost clean hands run for these games, meaning I will be going through the entire game without ever being detected or killing anyone. If I'm ever spotted or accidentally kill someone, I will be loading a previous save and trying again. Also, if you're doing this sort of run, I recommend saving often. Nothing stings more than waiting for several minutes, pulling off some cool stunt, getting caught a minute or 2 later, then having to do it all over again. Seriously, so long as you are not in combat, you can save whenever you want. Abuse that. As we continue on, I come upon this door where I use one of the coolest mechanics in the game and peep through the keyhole. A super good mechanic allowing us to see on the other side of the door without needing to open it. And it shows me a guard with their back turned, so I go in and... Also, if you pick up someone after knocking them out, you automatically pick their pockets. In this case, it gives me a key to the yard, meaning that we're one step closer to escaping. As we continue on, we find ourselves in a storage room, and opening the unlocked safe, we find ourselves a very conveniently placed bomb. Now, I'll be honest, this bomb thing is very tricky to do without killing anyone or getting caught, but don't worry, Billy's here to show you how it's done. First things first, we're going to stop by the yard, and can we take a moment to just appreciate how absurdly broken leaning is in this game? Like, I can have nothing covered but my pinky toe leaning out, full ass cheeks exposed, and somehow nobody can spot me. Though I actually believe they did fix that in the sequel, for, you know, whatever that's worth. Anyhow, once the yard is dealt with, I take a quick stop at... Oh boy, I sure hope that doesn't count as killing them. Moving on, I do continue to the control room here where I knock out both guards in the station, and despite opening the big-ass metal door, I decide I'd rather sneak above it, just in case there happen to be any guards who just decided to watch this gate open. Okay, so this is where we need to use the bomb to escape, right? Well, here's the thing. If you use the bomb, which, as far as I know, is the only way to actually get out, it is going to alert every guard in the area. And if they happen to be next to it as it goes off, they're going to die. So, what's the solution? How do we sneak past all these guards without alerting any of them and without killing anyone? Well, it turns out we just need to use the classic nobody can notice us if there's nobody to notice us trick. Non-lethally, of course. Well, I'm sure there might technically be a way to pull this off without knocking anybody out. I'll be honest, I have no idea how to do it, and quite frankly, I'm happy to do things the old-fashioned way. With the gate blown wide open, we instantly dive into the water below and swim towards the sewers. First step of our grand escape complete. As we're crawling above on grates, we pass by some guards who, To be honest, I'm not sure how to describe this scene, but it is worth keeping in mind for later. As we continue on, we eventually find ourselves in a new room with a metric fuck ton of rats, and while we could just start blasting, if you can remember the previous room, there is a more, morbid solution to this issue. With the rats distracted, we can quickly crank this wheel and get the hell out of Dodge. Watch the tripwires on the way up, and we can grab some supplies left by our benefactors to aid us in our escape, namely a crossbow fitted with bolts or sleeping darts, whichever fits your fancy, and a retractable sword. Continuing on, I happen upon a safe with a note left on it giving us a hint as to how to open it. Thankfully for both of us, I have video editing to help skip the 10 plus minutes of me not finding the solution to this. It's 451 by the way, before making our way out of the sewers, past the several guards blocking it, and meeting one of the men who set out to help us, Samuel. As we hop in the boat for Sam to take us back to the Hound's Pit pub, the main area that will be serving as our main home base for the rest of the adventure, we're greeted by our first end screen where it is shown that I did indeed do all of that without ever being spotted or killing a single soul. Off to a great start. As we arrive at the pub, we go around meeting the various important figures of the group known as the Loyalists, starting with the man running the show, Admiral Havelock, essentially just the man who gives us our missions and whatnot, and his rich friend, who isn't really that significant other than providing funds for the group, I suppose. Once we're done meeting these two, we take a step outside and head into the workshop where we meet Piero, the man who's in charge of all of our upgrades. This is something I actually like about the original game over the sequel. While it was nice to be able to upgrade our gear within a mission, it never made sense why a random merchant was just capable of upgrading our highly specific assassination gear. Meanwhile, in the original game, if we want upgrades, we have to go to the genius inventor who made all of this stuff to begin with. In my opinion, it adds something to the world building that there's really only one guy who knows how to tinker with this stuff. Piero also serves as a mini tutorial in a fairly organic way. He teaches us that pretty much anything powered by electricity is going to be connected to whale oil. So we run upstairs, grab some whale oil, bring it down, and plug it in. I do enjoy this sort of thing a lot because without outright telling us, it shows us that if we ever need to shut something off, if we can find the whale oil tank it's connected to, we can simply take out the oil, or alternatively, if we ever need to have something turned on, we know how to do that as well. It is a very nice, non-intrusive tutorial, also helped by the fact that it is incredibly short. Once we've turned on this man's machines, we're gifted with the game's ever so iconic mask, and man, I love this thing. But like, not the greatest thing to wear if you're wanting to blend in with your surroundings. To be honest, I think Emily had the right idea here with just a basic cloth mask covering her mouth. Much less suspicious than this nightmare fuel, even if it does look sick as hell. Wrapping things up, we decide to call it a night. As we start catching some Z's, we wake up in the middle of the night to discover that the building we were in has disintegrated and we are now in some sort of void. God, I hate when that happens. Luckily, we're met with the Outsider, who gives us a really cool tramp stamp that, just like in real life, gives us some really cool powers. For now, all we can do is use the blink power, which is just a teleport, but is arguably the best and most versatile ability. But we'll talk more about those later. As we continue on, we can see some interesting sights, like Emily frozen in time with a letter saying she doesn't believe that we're actually dead. As we continue on through the void, the Outsider gives us our very own beating, talking heart. Just what I always wanted. The cool thing about this, though, is that it gives us the ability to hunt down runes, and although not shown in this tutorial, bone charms. Runes are a currency we use to buy upgrades and or more powers, and in this instance, the only power we can really afford is dark vision. This ability allows us to see in the dark and, more importantly, makes the whole see through a keyhole mechanic entirely worth worthless, as we can now see through walls, so long as we're willing to deal with the sepia coloring of the world. Once we're done with that, the outsider gives us a nice slap on the tush and tells us to get back out there. As we're thrown back into the waking world, I immediately pull out my new heart and we're in luck. There just so happens to be a rune out here in the water that we can pick up and store for later when we have more. More importantly, we go back to talk to Admiral Havelock, who gives us our first assignment. We're given 2 tasks for this mission. Eliminate High Overseer Campbell, who is the guy we saw earlier while being branded, giving us some nice personal motivation to go after him as well. We're also tasked with finding a man known as Marvin. He was our man on the inside, spying on the Overseers, but it seems his position has been compromised, so we need to get him out of there. As we make our way to the boat, we're stopped by a maid who asks us to save her uncle as well. She believes the High Overseer will have it out for the man, as he is an actual man of integrity, and that clearly goes against the wishes of the entire Overseer faction. Before we head out, I rob Piero blind, then using the money I just stole from him, I go ahead and buy some equipment, namely sleep darts, as they're arguably the best item you can get when you're doing a clean hands run. With all of that out of the way, we can finally talk to Sam and make our way out. Dropping us off on the beach, the very first thing I do is pull out my heart and look at what items we can pick up. Luckily, there happens to be one nearby, so I climb up this chain and we find ourselves a fancy bone charm. These are accessories we can choose to wear that typically offer a minor gameplay change. Some of these are better than others, but you can mix and match to fit your playstyle. This charm, for example, is one of my favorites actually. This charm causes our mana to regenerate slightly faster. Okay, so I should explain that. When we use an ability, for example, Blink, you'll see part of our mana bar go light blue. If you do not use any ability for a few seconds, you'll regain that portion of your mana. Depending on the ability and how much mana it costs, you could get a full refund on all the mana you spent. With this bone charm specifically, the time you have to wait for that refund is significantly shortened, and I almost always have it on during a playthrough because, man, those couple of seconds add up when you're spamming Blink the entire game. As we move onto the streets of the Distillery District, making sure to avoid the guards, we can actually find wanted posters of Corvo with what I can only assume is a pretty hefty reward. More importantly, we can see a group of men hounding on a door, so trying to figure out what's going on, I decide to step inside via the balcony and ask this charming old lady what's going on. She tells us these men have a crush on her, but she's not interested in any of these gentlemen, so asks us to send them away. After introducing these men to the pavement via some sleep darts, I go back to Granny Rags, who promises us a birthday gift as thanks for dealing with her potential suitors. Before that though, I decide to go into Granny's backyard and stop at this rune shrine. These are a bit special compared to picking up a regular rune on the ground, as when you rob a shrine, you're met with the outsider who gives you an interesting tidbit about your mission, or NPC, or current surroundings. For example, he decides to give us some backstory on Granny Rags in this instance, telling us she used to be quite beautiful and would have potential suitors literally line up just to get the chance at hitting that Grussy. Why did I write this in the script? Anyhow, with Miss Rags robbed blind, I decide to pick up my birthday gift, which so happens to be another rune, which I am more than happy to...
I hope you...
Is it bad that legitimately jump scared me when I was playing this? Granny has another mission for us. She doesn't like the local gang running the streets and asks us if we'd be so kind as to steal some rat guts and infect their brewery where they're making bootleg healing potions. Because I love helping old women and can see absolutely nothing bad happening as a result of infecting a healing potion, I decide to take up this quest. Along the way, I find out that I apparently have enough rooms to unlock the bend time power, and considering considering there's a bit of a lull here, let's talk about all the powers you can choose to unlock. If that doesn't interest you, feel free to skip to the time on screen here. Blink. This is the first power given to you in the game. Using it, you can teleport from place to place. If you upgrade it, it simply allows you to teleport a longer distance. A very simple power, but very useful and extremely versatile. Dark Vision allows you to see in the dark, see NPCs through walls, and even see their field of vision. Upgraded, it allows you to see other items of interest, like, for example, loose money. It also has the benefit of being very cheap, like Blink, so you can use it indefinitely so long as you allow your mana to recharge after use. Rat Swarm. Rat Swarm allows you to summon, well, a swarm of rats whose main purpose is to attack, kill, and eat whatever you point them at. While absolutely worthless on a low chaos run, hence why I never even bothered unlocking it, if you're going for high chaos, it's pretty damn good, as it even wipes the evidence of your kill for you. Upgraded, it just allows the rats to eat faster. Our next power is Bend Time. Bend Time allows you to slow down time, making it easier to slip past guards, knock someone out, steal something, aim your shot, or whatever else. Upgraded, it allows you to go full... Look, I know JoJo's is kind of cringe now, but I did the joke in the previous video. I feel it was necessary to do it for this one. You can stop time and, well, do whatever you want in stopped time with nobody being aware of your passing. It is one of the strongest abilities in the game and useful no matter what kind of run you're doing. The only downside is how expensive it is to unlock and use, but it's absolutely worth the price of admission. Next up is Possession. This power allows you to take over the mind of any animal you run into, sometimes going an alternate route that would not normally be available to Corvo. Upgraded, you can now take control of a human for a very limited time. While this power can be useful, I didn't bother with it much for my playthrough. It has been useful to me in past playthroughs, but for most issues, I decide to stop time or just find some other way to sneak around. Still, it's very unique and it is good. And lastly is Wind Blast. This power is essentially what it sounds like. You can use it to knock people back, blow open doors, or whatever else a massive gust of wind would be useful for. Upgraded, your Wind Blast is more powerful and you can now slam people against a wall, killing them instantly. The rest of the stuff you can buy with runes is pretty self-explanatory. Vitality gives you more health and ups your health regeneration. Agility gives you a cool as hell double jump and allows you to overall move faster. Bloodthirsty makes you better at killing people. And Shadow Kill turns the people you kill into ash, erasing any evidence of your actions. Between all of those, I recommend Agility, with the rest depending on your playthrough. I personally don't find Vitality that useful on a clean hands ghost run because you're not fighting anyone. So any damage you're taking is typically just from fall damage. Most of the time, I'm sitting on max health potions. The other two are obviously not good for a clean hands run, so I didn't bother. With that out of the way, we continue on through the streets of the Distillery District when we hear a man yelling for help as thugs appear to have the man locked away. As we sneak up and knock the thugs out, we can knock these boards down, freeing the man, who is a black market dealer. Side distraction out of the way, we make our way over to Dr. Galvani's office, a character, to my knowledge, that we never see throughout the entire series. Still, we're here to steal a rat, and after moving his bookshelf because, hahaha, quirky rich people shit, we steal our rat and head back to the streets. We make our way to the distillery, sneaking above them on the beams above the distillery, managing to steal a key off some mook and head into the main part of the building. Once again, going above everyone's head, we eventually find our way in a storage room full of barrels, and climbing those, we can grab ourselves another bone charm. Don't worry, I'm not going to explain every bone charm and what it does. That would be a waste of time. Thankfully, with no guards inside this space, or at least none that are awake, we can easily move to the machine making the stuff, making sure to make ourselves a free health potion before contaminating the entire batch. That out of the way, we sneak our way back out before meeting up with Granny Rags, who, thankfully with no jump scares, gives us another birthday gift. I love getting runes for absolutely ruining people's lives with the plague, and this somehow does not count as killing anyone. It does raise your chaos score though, but that hardly matters if you're doing clean hands. As we continue on, we run into a group of thugs having a confrontation with each other over payment. As this turns ugly, one of them gets shanked, so I figure it must have been a pretty big sum if it was worth murdering his mate over, so I grab my crossbow and shoot the 2 remaining goons with some sleep darts and grab the loot. Turns out he murdered his friend for a grand total of 25 coins. Boy, it's rough out here. That doesn't even cover 1 sleep dart. One more stop before we make our way to Holger Square, where all of our targets are conveniently located. Don't worry, this detour is quick. I just stop by this guard station, open up the hatch, grab a rune while the guard's back is turned, and slip out before he even realizes he's been robbed. Honestly, I just thought this moment was cool. It wasn't exactly relevant. On to Holger Street. The very first thing we're met with as we step inside is a man chained up in a pillory being talked to by an overseer. In case it isn't clear, overseers are these funky dudes in masks. Gameplay-wise, they're exactly the same as guards. The only difference is they're highly religious. We overhear the conversation, and turns out the man in the pillory is the guy we came looking for, Martin. So I knock out the singular guard in the middle of the street, pull the lever, and get our boy out. Thankfully, Dishonored doesn't do any of that escort mission nonsense. Once you set the man free, he's fully capable of taking care of himself, and we can simply move on to our next objective. As we continue on to the main building, we overhear a conversation between 2 overseers mentioning something called a heretic's mark, and this seems like it might be useful to our current mission, so we decide to go ahead and look into it. Sneaking our way into the massive structure, we head towards the archives where we can find a book explaining that a heretic's brand will permanently mark any overseer and ruin their entire life. They would lose their status and be forced to live the rest of their life in squalor. Depending on your outlook, this is honestly a fate worse than death, as you're forced into a life of begging. It's perfect. Going through the building, we manage to find a meeting room where Campbell is going to attempt to poison our optional save target. Looking on the table, we can see 2 glasses, one poisoned, one not. We have a couple of choices here. We could swap the glasses, causing Campbell to poison himself, and while that would be an epic gamer move, I decide to be a good boy and instead spill both glasses so nobody drinks the poison. With the poison neutralized, we can hide above the door and watch as Campbell is pissed that he now has to kill this man the old-fashioned way. Before he can do that though, I go ahead and slow down time and knock out both men with a sleep dart, dropping off their unconscious bodies on the windowsills outside. Thankfully, nobody in this universe rolls over in their sleep. With both targets unconscious, we can drop off the man we want to save in a dumpster, the most safe place to be during a plague, and we can take Dear Campbell here to an interrogation room where we can give him a taste of his own medicine and mark him a heretic, ruining his life and effectively neutralizing him. With that out of the way, there's not much to do besides find the man's secret sex dungeon, grab some runes and bone charms, maybe take a quick side quest to save this man's sister and rob the overseer bunks, then head back to the Hound's Pit pub after a job well done. Also, a couple of side notes. 1. Someone discovering a body you left behind actually does not count against you if you're doing a ghost run. It does put the local guards on high alert, so it'll be a bit more difficult to sneak past them, but so long as they do not physically see you, you're golden. 2. While you cannot kill people in a clean hands run, you're welcome to kill any animals you find along the way. So if there's a dog that's being a massive problem, feel free to put a bolt in its neck and keep going. PETA would be proud. Back in the Hound's Pit pub, the first thing I decide to do after a job well done is stop by Piero's shop and buy a couple of upgrades as well as the rune he has in stock. And with our shopping out of the way, with me being dirt poor as a result, I decide to talk to Admiral Havelock and inform him about the success of our mission. One thing I will say, I am slightly disappointed that there doesn't seem to be any difference in dialogue depending on how you handle the target. The way he talked to us, it seems that he believes we killed the High Overseer, but with audio and later missions,
Attention, Dunwall citizens. Thaddeus Campbell, formerly High Overseer, is no longer a citizen of Dunwall. He now bears the Heretics brand, and by one of the oldest traditions of the Abbey of the Everyman, it is now a minor... Hey!
it's very public knowledge that Campbell wasn't killed. He was branded a heretic. It's not a big deal. I just think it had been nice if our compatriots reacted to how we cleared the missions instead of always treating us the same afterwards. Anyhow, the Admiral just gives us a congratulations and a job well done for our work and tells us to go and get some sleep to prepare for our job the next day. So, the next day, Havelock informs us that there were sounds heard beneath the pub in the sewers and believes it to be Weepers, plague victims, but gives us the key to go down there and handle them, just in case. So I head down, knock these poor people out and let them die in their sleep at least, and grab a rune they were protecting, giving us enough runes to buy the full time stop ability. With that done, we can return to the Loyalist and get our second mission. It seems they've located Emily. It turns out she's at a place known as the Golden Cat, a high-class brothel. Oh no. Even more interesting, it turns out Pendleton's older brothers, some of the biggest supporters of the Lord Regent, are frequent proprietors at this establishment. So, once again, we have two main directives. 1. Rescue Emily. 2. Eliminate the older brothers of Pendleton. As Sam begins taking us back to the distillery district, he tells us about Slackjaw, leader of the Bottle Street gang, and says that he might have a way for us to more easily sneak into the Golden Cat. With that in mind, we make our way back to the distillery, base of the Bottle Street gang, where some of the thugs in the group tell us that Slackjaw would like to talk to us. Very convenient. Do watch the buildings in this area though, as now, in some areas of the game, assassins from the beginning of the game will be prowling around watching the area. While I don't think they're necessarily dangerous enemies, they are probably the most competent in the game and the most likely to actually catch you out, as they are capable of hanging out on rooftops and other high up places.
Call an ambulance! Call an ambulance! But not for me.
We slip into the distillery and have a conversation with Slackjaw. Turns out he's short-handed as a result of his brew being contaminated. I wonder how that happened. And he could really use our help right now. He tells us one of his best men has gone missing and asks us to find him, and if we're willing to do this for him, he'll get us into the Golden Cat. As we exit out of the meeting place, we can see that the Weepers who were locked away broke out and started attacking the thugs of the gang, allowing us to sneak in and grab the bone charm they were guarding. Unfortunately, it seems that the Weepers won the scuffle, so we have to knock out the last remaining one before we can leave back for the streets. Turns out, Slackjaw's man is at the same doctor's office we were at last time. Sadly, it seems the man died doing whatever it was he was doing, but we do find an audiograph on him that we can take back to Slackjaw. It's also here I find a very odd 3-number combo on the chalkboard, and as a genius who understands game design, I'm able to deduce that this is a safe combo, and for my troubles, decide to rob the doctor blind before making my way back to Mr. Jaw. Returning back to Loose Mouth with the unfortunate news that his man is dead, he seems slightly upset, but a deal is a deal, and he gives us a key to an abandoned hotel near the Golden Cat that we can use to sneak into the building. With that done, he offers us another deal. He'll take care of the Pendletons without killing them if we're willing to get a safe combination for him from one of the patrons of the Golden Cat. How does Slackjaw intend to neutralize the brothers? He's going to kidnap them, cut out their tongues, and force them to do slave labor for the rest of their lives deep in the mines that they themselves own. Honestly, I feel like it would be a mercy just to kill them, but you know what? I'm a perfect little angel, so sounds like a deal to me. Making our way to the abandoned hotel, which is a lot harder than you might think, thank goodness for the ability to stop time, we're able to sneak across the rooftops and easily head inside of the Golden Cat. Also worth noting, on the way here, I saved a woman from a group of nefarious men who thanked us by giving us a key to the man's apartment who we're getting the safe code from. As we enter the Golden Cat, as per usual, I grab whatever runes and bone charms I can, and using the runes I just got, I upgrade Blink, and man, let me tell you, this extra length is a game changer. Don't listen to those people you hear on Reddit. Size absolutely does matter. We immediately head towards the art dealer, who is into some interesting vices.
Oh, that's good.
It's certainly convenient, so I give him a couple of shocks, and in thanks for humoring him, he willingly gives us the code to his safe. With that out of the way, I sneak up behind the owner of the place, steal her key, and we can use her notes to figure out that Emily is being held upstairs in the bunk rooms of all the employees. Rescuing Emily, we're greeted by the single greatest escort mission in all of gaming. Namely, Emily doesn't need to be escorted. She just goes to the destination and waits for us. Game devs, take notes. This is how you do an escort mission. You don't. Anyhow, after we exit the Golden Cat, Emily once again proves she is the greatest AI companion and just fucks off to the boat to wait for us to wrap things up out here. With that done, I head over to the art dealer's apartment and, woohoo boy! This place could use a good spring cleaning. Even more unfortunately, it seems like we're not the first people to have this idea, as there appears to be another group of thieves attempting to open the safe. Knocking them out, we can use the code we procured and rob the artist before returning to Slackjaw. Technically, we never broke our deal. We do give him the code. We never said we wouldn't rob the artist first with that exact code after all. Funnily enough, there is actually no downside to doing this. You're never called out. Slackjaw never finds out you backstabbed him. You get off with this scot-free and even get an achievement for it. Now that's what I call consequences. We return to Sam with Emily in tow and head back to the pub. First things first, we stop by Piero's and do some shopping. Namely, we upgrade our mask and now we can zoom in quite a bit. Honestly, pretty neat. After which we go and speak with Pendleton, who doesn't have much to say other than he has mixed feelings about the death of his brothers and tells us to go talk to Havelock. Speaking to Havelock, it appears we're not getting any sleep tonight as we now need to go and kidnap the royal physician, Anton Sokolov. So we head out with Sam before we even get the chance for a smoke break. Sadly, we're not quite able to make it all the way to Sokolov because of the searchlights in the area, so we've got quite a distance to go to get to our target. Sam asks us to handle the lights so he can move in closer after we've secured our target, and as I try to be smart and sneak through by swimming, I learn what bastards the fish in the Dishonored world are. Seriously, this is actually absurd. Well, there's not too much of note here. There's a very cool puzzle I like that requires you to piece together the safe combo to open this safe, as well as this woman surrounded by rats and needs them handled. Turns out she doesn't appreciate it when you feed the rats a body to distract them, so I have to handle them the old-fashioned way. Eventually, I managed to climb to the top of this immensely tall bridge and unplug the whale oil tanks powering the searchlight, allowing Sam to get into a better position. That out of the way, we continue on to Sokolov's neighborhood, where the first thing we notice, other than how all of the buildings here are in complete disrepair, we do see a group of citizens being held hostage by a wall of light. Deciding to be a hero, I go and unplug the thing, and after seeing the guards attack the poor sods, I manage to knock out all the guards, allowing the people to run on out of here. And thanks for this, one of them actually informs us of a safe behind a painting that we can pick up for some free cash money. Because we're already talking about secret safes, you might notice a note on a rooftop here talking about a secret room that requires you to turn a faucet 3 times. I'll be honest, this took me a while to find. But if you just come back to the beginning of this area, hop into this abandoned room here, and turn this faucet, we can find ourselves a really cool secret stash. Watch the rats though. I love this sort of stuff. There was no mission or side objective to find this. No way marker, no runes, or bone charms. And yet it was still a hidden little treasure trove. It's honestly super cool to put these sorts of things in the world for people to find if they're paying attention. We can now climb Sokolov's building from the outside, as he is currently in the greenhouse on the roof, then easily sneak up on the man and knock him out. I think you can travel through the house to find him, but this sort of thing is why upgraded Blink is worth every rune it costs. Also worth noting, I love how quote-unquote gray Sokolov's morality is in this game. If we look further in this room, we can see a woman in a cage waiting to be experimented on by the physician, and those people locked behind the wall of light, those are going to be his next experiments. You could argue this is a necessary evil in order for the man to be able to find a cure for the ongoing plague, but it's not like Sokolov is torn up about it. It's not like they're being compensated or comforted for their sacrifice. Sokolov genuinely has no issues experimenting on unwilling people. I actually like this interpretation of the character more than what was shown in the second game, where he's basically just a morally good ally and nobody brings up all the messed up things he's done. Well, he's comatose now, so we take him back to Sam, now parked nearby, and head back to the pub, ready to rest after 2 jobs done in a single day. Not before checking in on Emily though. Aw, look at her. So precious. After we're nice and rested, Emily wakes up telling us she decided to take a nap in here with us, since it helps her feel safe, where we are then given the option to be an absolute fucking asshat to this little girl who just lost her mom and was kidnapped, then forced to sleep in a whorehouse. Good God. Thankfully, I'm not a psychopath, and that seems to make Emily happy, who then tells us she left us a gift. Turning around, we can see what that is, and it's a cute little drawing she made of Corvo, and man, this sort of stuff just warms my heart. With that out of the way, we make our way to the interrogation room, which is just a massive cage apparently made for hounds? But I really don't see why I would need to go up to the ceiling just to hold some dogs. Regardless, this is where the Loyalists have decided to keep Sokolov for the time being. It turns out he has some information for us, namely who is supplying the Lord Regent with all of his money. The only problem is, he doesn't seem too keen on telling us who that might be. It's here where we're given a choice. We can choose to either go through some long, tedious chain in order to entice the man to giving us the information, or
Release the
Rats.
No, not rats. Stop! Stop! I will tell you what you need to know.
is there a reason not to just release the rats? If you're teetering on the edge of low and high chaos, then it might be worth it. But if you're like me and you haven't killed a single soul the entire playthrough, there's really no reason not to just save the time and money. With Sokolov properly motivated, he relinquishes the information. The Lord Regent is being bankrolled by his mistress. We don't get her full name, but she goes by Lady Boyle, and as it turns out, there's a ball being held at her estate tonight in her honor. Even better, the ball happens to be a masked ball, meaning we already have the perfect disguise to blend in. As we begin to make our way out, we're stopped by Pendleton, who asks us to give a letter to another party guest in his honor. And Pendleton has been a real trustworthy guy up until this point, so I'm happy to help the man out. With note in hand, I think it's time to go out. Dropping us off in the river near the Boyle estate, we begin to make our way to the mansion when I, of course, decide to pick up any runes or bone charms on the way. This time there being a shrine where we can have a chat with the outsider where he tells us this is going to be Lady Boyle's last party. Ominous. That aside, we manage to sneak into the party and enter the backyard, where, luckily, we can meet the man Pendleton wanted us to talk to. And it turns out Rich Boy is a fucking coward, because he just signed us up to do a duel for him that he was too scared to do. So, we go to this area and... any day now. Okay, so I'm not sure what happened here, but my game glitched and the guards never counted down like they were supposed to, so I had to redo the entire conversation, including picking up the pistol all over again. Also, you can absolutely do this non-lethally. Instead of shooting the man with the gun, you can shoot him with a sleep dart. For some reason, the guards still believe he's dead, despite his loud-ass snoring, but... you know, whatever. With that out of the way, we can enter the main attraction. First problem, there are 3 Lady Boyles, and we have to figure out which one is our target. If you're doing a high chaos run, the solution is simple. Just kill all 3. One is bound to be the correct answer. But with our current status, we'll need to find a different solution. As we pass by this horrifically masked man, he knows what we're after and is willing to offer us a deal. He knows the first name of the Boyle we need to handle, and he's even willing to, take her away because, in his words...
Your target is the woman I love.
Okay, well, now we know which Boyle to go after, but now the problem is we don't know which Boyle is the right Boyle. So, thinking quickly, we sneak our way upstairs and, like any proper gentleman should, we rifle through the personal belongings of all these women and find out our target is the one in red. That knowledge in hand, we can head back into the party and speak to Wendy and tell her that there is someone out there that wants her hurt. But we have an escape for her if she's willing to meet us alone in her basement. Thankfully, she buys it and it willingly isolates herself in the basement. This bitch is dumb as hell. Choking her out, we can hand her off to her new husband and watch the happy couple sail off into the sunset. Also, fun fact, apparently Wendy here doesn't end up as poorly as you might assume. She ends up wrapping her new suitor over her little finger until he dies of mysterious circumstances, and she was the sole benefactor left in his will, inheriting all the riches and estate. At least according to this one commenter on my last Dishonored video, and, well, that's good enough for me, because everyone knows you can 100% trust YouTube comments. With giving away a woman to her stalker, that's another job well done. So we exit the party via the sewers and swim our way back to Sam, who's happy to drop us off back at the Hound's Pit pub. Of course, first things first, always, stop by Piero first to do some light shopping. Next thing we do is meet up with Pendleton, who does give us a rune as a result of doing a duel in his place, so at least we got something out of being tricked to potentially murder a man. With all that done, we meet back up with Admiral Havelock, who tells us with the Lord Regent's allies all neutralized, the former spy master is now properly crippled and we're ready to take him out. Before we head out, we stop by and speak with Callista, who asks us to find Emily because she likes to mess with the poor woman and hide when she's supposed to be learning. Luckily, Emily is in the first place I think to look, which is our bedroom. As a reward, she gives us a rune, then heads off to her lessons. Yo, where the fuck did she even get this? That done, we meet up with Sam, who seems a bit morose that this is going to be the final mission we work on together. Alright, here we are. Back where it all started, the waterlock from the beginning of the game. Unfortunately, this time we can't properly ride the thing, as that would lead to the entire town knowing we're here, so instead, using my cool new powers, we can climb to the top. After that, you'll notice that this is the most guarded area in the game, and it makes sense. Despite the Lord Regent being crippled financially, it appears he's been able to maintain a rather respectable security force. Namely, it's difficult to sneak past the tall boys here because, despite looking goofy as hell walking around on essentially giant stilts, they can see on top of buildings, and because they're so high up, putting them to sleep is likely to kill them from the fall. Despite the obstacles, we manage to stealth our way to the main palace where we can see the Lord Regent on a TV screen, which is kind of wild to me to realize how technologically advanced the world of Dishonored is. It's especially weird to me considering we never see screens like this ever again in the series, despite years passing between 1 and 2, not even in the Jindosh manner. You'll never believe how we handle the Lord Regent non-lethally if you've never played the game before. See, he keeps us safe in his room, and for some reason, like the dumb fucking supervillain he is, he left a confession of all the terrible things he did. So, we can take this incriminating evidence and go to the nearby radio tower. In case you were curious, this man here is the announcer we hear throughout the game over the PA system on the island. Turns out the Lord Regent admits to treason on an audiograph he keeps in his safe. He admits to purposefully bringing in the rat plague, as well as setting up the assassination of the Empress. Yeah, dude, maybe don't admit to such heinous crimes in your audio diary? This has to be the dumbest way to deal with the man non-lethally. I'm honestly convinced that Arcane ran out of ideas and just got real lazy with this one. Should probably note that there is a side quest to handle the butcher in the basement, but the only way to complete that quest, to my knowledge, is to kill the man. So I just knock him out and steal his stuff instead, but that doesn't count as completion. Also, there's an extra rune on the roof, which is where you would find the Lord Regent if you were in high chaos, but I didn't bother because at this point I have all the powers I really need and I didn't really want to bother going out of my way for it. With all that said and done, it's time we meet back up with Sam so we can go back to the Hound's Pit pub. We meet with the boys and give a toast, and after everything that's happened, it feels good now that it's all over. Now we just need to grab Emily and... Yup. That's right, we were double-crossed. After everything we did for those vermin, they stab us in the back in order to use Emily for themselves. Thankfully, Sam's a good man and he did everything he could to make sure we didn't actually die from the poisoning. Just got really, really sick instead. Side note, how the hell did these dumb fucks not notice we were alive? My eyes were wide open, staring right at them. And I was even moving my head back and forth. How do they not catch that? Well, it doesn't matter because Sam drops us off in the flooded district, basically the slums, where we're so lucky as to be caught by assassins working for Dowd. Oh goody. And even better, the asshole decides to toss out our gear and leave us imprisoned in this small hole in the ground. Why he doesn't just outright kill us is beyond me, but thankfully, he leaves us a way to escape with all these bricks. You really didn't think any of this through, did you, big man? Well, you can also escape by becoming a rat, but the devs had to give you a way out in case you didn't have that power. This level has a pretty cool concept, doubly so if you're going for a flesh and steel run. Namely, for the beginning part, you were without any of the gear you had. So no sword, unless you grab one right outside of your cell, no crossbow, no extra vials you had on your person, nada. With that in mind, it actually makes it a tad bit difficult to sneak past the guards upstairs, as for some reason, they're freaking glitched and they'll spot me as I sneak past them in stop time? In fairness, I think this happens because autosave saved during my stopped time right next to them, and it was screwing with their AI. So just make sure you save after you hop in the water and save yourself the headache. With that, we can travel down the river, dealing with the annoying-ass hagfishes, and even worse, these clams that spit acid. They sting, and I, lost a life or two because of them. Fun. Eventually, we can move past that and find ourselves in the Greaves refinery after climbing to the top of the building. Thankfully, there isn't much security here other than some weepers, who we can easily knock out and finally get our gear back. Look, I know that was only a few seconds for you, but that was like 30 minutes for me. It was honestly excruciating, especially dealing with those damn clams. Speaking of... ah, sweet retribution. With that, we make our way out by blowing up this door because I somehow missed the key and sneaking past the Weepers before landing ourselves in the central Rudshore, the home to Dowd's lair. This area can be a bit rough. Namely, there are a lot of assassins around, and unlike most enemies, they're actually pretty perceptive and can go in a lot of places that regular guards can't because they have the power to teleport. Eventually, we manage to sneak into the building, and we can find a fun little Easter egg.
For your next trial, you must move unseen. Stay in shadow and avoid the light. Cross to the other side of the room without attracting notice.
Apparently, this is a reference to the Thief series. Thanks for the sleep darts, guys. With those losers handled, we can move on to the, arguably hardest moment in the game. We gotta steal Dowd's key without killing or notifying him. You might think, oh, just knock him out with a sleep dart. Nope. Man injected 10 cups of coffee directly into his veins before we came, so he is immune to sleep. Okay, well, just stop time and grab the key while he's unaware.
Nice try, Corvo.
Yeah, no, they really thought of everything for this. Turns out, he does turn his back on the key every so often. So, the plan is, go in while he's not looking, quickly grab the key, then teleport away, leaving Dowd none the wiser. Though, from all evidence from my research, it seems as the canon thing that happens here is Corvo confronting Dowd, but considering there's no way to do that without getting caught, we'll just ignore that for now. Once we grab the key, I head back and unlock this locked door, and we're closer than ever to getting back to Emily. It seems our best bet to get out of the flooded district, with how heavily they've closed it off, is via this cart that does nothing but dump bodies into the streets. Jesus. While most people are incapable of making the jump to ride the wagon, we have occult superpowers, so closing the distance is as easy as... Unfortunately, we're not quite out of the woods yet. We still need to travel further through the old port district and then slip into the sewers, my favorite place to be during a plague. As we're continuing on, we find a man bleeding out, having a conversation. It appears our only way out is via the locked door, but the only person with the key is our old friend Slackjaw, currently being held captive by his arch nemesis, Granny Rags. And if we want to get out of here, we need to get that key. Now this This is the single most difficult part of any sort of ghost run as we travel through the sewers, including a part where we need to swim through dirty, gross sewage water. We will eventually find ourselves in what I assume is Granny Rags' main lair, where we can see her currently wondering what to do with her captive Slackjaw. Here's what's difficult. I want to save Slackjaw, right? Killing Granny Rags is out of the question, and knocking her out does us no good as she turns into a bunch of rats. Even if you didn't want to save Slackjaw, the moment you grab the key, she is alert to you, so even that's out of the question. There is a solution to the problem. We need to go upstairs into her personal chambers, look under her pillow, and get her cameo, which is just a coin with her face printed on it. And with that, we can now burn it and she's mortal again. You would think, okay, great, now we just need to hit her with a sleep dart and be done, right?
Oh, no, you don't. I'll kill you and cook you and eat your heart for breakfast.
I wish it was that easy. She pretty much aggroes instantly the second you burn the thing. So, how do we solve this? I'll admit, I had to look up a guide to figure this out because the devs clearly did not intend for you to save Slackjaw without aggroing Miss Rags. Here's what you do. You grab the cameo and you throw it into the burner, pull the lever, and immediately stop time so you can jump out of the window. With that done, resume time and watch the burner. Granny Rags will move to it and it'll explode. The second you see that furnace explode, stop time again and hit Granny Rags with a sleep dart. If you time it well, she'll be knocked out without ever aggroing to you, allowing you to save Slackjaw and still have clean hands. With that out of the way, we can hop back into Granny Rags' secret room, grab this rune at the shrine where the lighting does an excellent job at making the outsider look absolutely demonic. Good God. And he just sort of taunts us for getting stabbed in the back and losing Emily after all that hard work. Then we can hit the planks and take a secret shortcut back to the door exit out of here and... Oh, you have got to be kidding me. This was part of the reason I struggled with Granny Rags for so long, by the way. Literally like an hour of footage just trying to deal with her non-lethally. It turns out it wasn't even her. I messed up somewhere earlier and I have no idea where, so guess what I get to do?
You know a great deal, buddy.
By the way, this cutscene is unskippable, so if you need to replay the entire mission, you have to go through this every time.
1 hour later.
Finally done. That was annoying as all hell. You know, one thing I wish the game would have implemented, give us an optional box that shows us when we have either been caught or we have killed someone, as that would save a whole lot of headache versus having to wait until we finish the level to figure out if we did all the things right. Now that that headache is over, we can finally climb out of the sewers and find ourselves in the abandoned apartment right across the street from the Hound's Pit pub. Inside this rundown building, we can find Cecilia, one of the maids that was working for the Loyalist, where she tells us after we were poisoned and dragged away, the Loyalist, true to their name, started lining up all the people that were working for them and giving them their bonuses for a job well done. Turns out the bonus was a bullet to the back of the head. Cecilia was somehow able to escape the massacre, and Havelock spared Callista, who, if you don't remember, was the caretaker for Emily while we were out on missions. With nowhere better to look, we take the keys and head out of this place in search of some answers to Emily's whereabouts. The first thing you'll notice about the Hound's Pit pub is that the place is now surrounded by guards, the main issue here being the tall boys. Still, we're able to sneak to our room, and after knocking out the 3 guards searching the place, we find a letter left behind by Emily telling us both A, Callista has a flare to signal for Sam, and B, where they are taking Emily. So, we stop by Callista Callista, who gives us some sob story, who cares, and launch the flare so we can tell Sam we're ready to go. Before we head out though, we stop by Piero's shop and he says he needs some help escaping. Him and Sokolov are bros now and have invented a machine together in order to handle all the guards on the island. Man, I wish I had done this beforehand. We go get the missing blueprints for the inventor boys, and using those, they're able to fix the machine to either knock out or kill every guard in the area without harming anyone else. This is probably the goofiest decision in the series, in my opinion. There isn't anything else to the choice. It's straight up, do you want to kill everyone or just put them to sleep? It's not like one is easier or one would require you to go out and get more parts. No, it's just a difference between whether you want to be a sadistic psychopath or you want to be a goody two-shoes. Before you head off to meet up with Sam, make sure you do your shopping with Piero, because once you leave, there is no turning back. Whatever you have on you is all you're going to get for the rest of the game, barring whatever you happen to find while you're on the mission itself. With that in mind, we meet up with Samuel, who is happy to take us to our final destination, King Sparrow Island. As he drops us off, he gives us one final slap on the tush for old time's sake, and wishes us good luck in our mission. Since we're doing a low chaos run, there's actually not a ton to do here besides just find Emily. We enter via the beach route, slipping past everyone undetected. Mostly, until we eventually make it to the elevator. Once there, we can ride this bad boy up and find ourselves in a lighthouse that reminds me a lot of BioShock, if I'm honest. Pretty cool. Now, I know I skipped a lot, but there's not a ton to say for the final level. Yeah, I knocked some people out, got a rune or two, and did a lot of sneaking, and that's about all there is to it. There weren't really any cool set pieces worth talking about, no cool puzzles or secrets, no shrines. The final level is just kind of okay. The best part, in my opinion, is right here at the very end. As we get to the top of the tower, we can find a room with Admiral Havelock drinking next to a fireplace. We can see a full dining table, and in every single chair is a former member of the Loyalists, all dead via poison. We can now listen to the Admiral monologue to himself, raving about how they got there and how he'll raise Emily to be an empress to rule for the next 60 years, surely for no personal benefit at all, and even curses us for putting him on this path because we were too good at our job. We knock the man out, and before we rescue Emily, here's a fun fact. Canonically, Corvo actually slits the Admiral's throat from behind. How do I know this? Well, I was curious and looked it up on the wiki, since that tends to tell you what the canon fates are for every character, and this was apparently revealed in the Dishonored comic series. First of all, there's Dishonored comic books. Second, I find it interesting that despite low chaos being the default state of the world for Dishonored, Corvo goes out of his way to kill someone when he really didn't need to. I haven't actually read the comic, so maybe he had no other choice at the time, but from what I understand about Corvo, he's not exactly a bloodthirsty man. I don't know, it just feels weird. He probably could have just as easily knocked the man out. He doesn't have coffee like Dowd after all, but he chose to sneak up on the man and just slit his throat? Corvo is a guard, so I'm sure he has no qualms killing when he needs to. Still, it feels off to me. Either way though, we can now go to the room that he has locked Emily away, and reuniting with her, we have officially finished Dishonored. As things are wrapped up, the Outsider gives us a Where Are They Now segment, showing us Emily on the throne, Piero and Sokolov curing the plague, Martin and Callista safe and sound, and my favorite, Samuel running his own bar, which, if you pay attention, you can even see Corvo is there having a drink. I love that. With that done, the credits roll and we're booted back to the main menu. You might think we're done, but in 2013, Arcane Studios released some DLC for us, adding to the story of Dishonored and giving us a few more missions to play through. Okay, well technically they released 3 DLCs, but for the sake of this video, we're not going to talk about Dunwall City Trials, as there is no story to that one. They're just a few challenges you can do in order to test your skills, and it didn't particularly interest me. Released in April of 2013, Knife of Dunwall is a very interesting entry in the Dishonored franchise, as instead of taking control of Corvo, you actually play as Dowd, the Empress's assassin for these sets of missions. Going into this, I'll admit, I never played either of these DLCs before. I've heard lots of good things about them, but for the most part, I went in unspoiled and with high expectations. Did the DLC meet those expectations? Well, let's get into it. As we start the DLC, the very first thing we see is the assassination of the Empress, except this time it's from the perspective of Dowd, though it appears to be in the form of a flashback. From the narration of the scene, it seems Dowd is regretful of what he did to the woman though, maybe realizing that the reason the islands are in such a shitty state right now is because their best leader was abruptly removed from the position. As the flashback comes to an end, we find ourselves in a familiar void, and exploring around, one thing you might pick up on is that our blink is a bit different than the one we're more accustomed to. Dowd's version of blink lets him stop time while preparing to teleport, so long as he isn't moving as he aims. While this would eventually be added to Corvo's blink in the sequel, it does help differentiate Dowd from Corvo, at least for this entry. We'll get more into Dowd's power a little bit later. As we continue on through the void, we eventually run into the Outsider who, along with giving us a little taunt, tells us an important name we might want to look into: Delilah. Okay, so I know a few people mentioned this in my comment section of the Dishonored 2 video last time, but I will say, as someone who has never played the DLC for 1, but really enjoys 2, it was genuinely a surprise to me that Delilah was actually introduced in this game, and I'll admit, it did a good job at piquing my interest. But Dowd has no idea who that is, so it's going to be his job to solve this mystery. That done, we fast forward 6 months, and Billy Lurk, our second in command, has found a lead for us in this Delilah business. She's found a boat that has the name Delilah, and now we're going to ask the owner to get whatever we can out of him so we can figure out who this woman is and what she has to do with us. Before we can start the actual mission though, we're greeted by a mechanic unique to Dowd, the favor mechanic. Dowd, the established assassin that he is, has an entire network of people that he can contact. If we choose to buy favors, this can lead to certain secrets, extra collectibles, or even the level as a whole being made easier for us as we're given tools or a secret pathway to our goals. These aren't free, however, but considering how I play the game, there's not a whole lot else to spend our money on other than sleep darts and the occasional rune. With us supplied and all favors bought, we can finally start on the mission. We begin on the rooftops outside the slaughterhouse where the owner of both it and the ship we've heard about resides. Unfortunately, the workers are having a bit of a strike right now, and as a result, it's made security a bit uptight and harder for us to slip in. This is the future Amazon fights against and why we can't have unions. Now stop complaining and get back to pissing in the bottle. Okay, so now I feel like this is a good time to pause and talk about Dowd's power and what really differentiates him from Corvo. We've already talked about his blink, so we'll skip that, but the next big difference is the Void Gaze. For the most part, it's the same as Corvo's Dark Vision, but there is one major difference. See, Dowd doesn't have the heart Corvo has in order to point him in the direction of runes and bone charms. Instead, they put that feature into Void Gaze. So long as Void Gaze is active, then Dowd is able to see where all the runes and bone charms are within a certain vicinity. I vastly prefer this to how Corvo handles the situation. I just think it's annoying constantly having to swap between the heart and whatever other power to find runes, and much prefer them to always be up while you're moving about and doing whatever. Especially since Void Gaze works underwater and the heart doesn't. The trade-off is Void Gaze doesn't appear to have as much range as the heart, so, you know, gotta take the good with the bad. Also, the upgrade is the same as Dark Visions, where now it'll highlight things like supplies or money. Next is Bend Time, which is exactly the same as Corvo's, so we're not going to go over it here. As for Dowd's only truly unique power, at least in this DLC, we have Summon Assassin. Just my luck, it's a power I can't even use because I am going for a clean hands ghost run. What this power does is allows us to, well, summon an assassin. Using it, we can summon someone to either help us fight or take out a target silently. Also, apparently they can be used to give us information of the surrounding area if we aren't currently in combat, essentially replacing the heart's function to do that. As for the upgraded version, we just get a stronger assassin. The rest are the same upgrades Corvo had, agility, vitality, etc. I find it kind of disappointing that Dowd doesn't have more powers, or at the very least, more unique ones. Emily from Dishonored 2 felt so distinct and unique because she had a completely different moveset from Corvo, making repeat playthroughs even better in that game. Dowd just has a better blink, a slightly better version of Dark Vision, stop time, and one unique ability that I couldn't even use. To talk about the mission itself, after searching around, I find a safe code left for us by some of the favors we called in, and I decided to go ahead and cash that in. After which, and making sure to grab some other runes and bone charms lying around, I try to sneak into the facility. Unfortunately, the hatch to do so is currently closed, and in order to open it, I need to pull a lever. And because there's always has to be something else, the damn thing is guarded by an arc pylon. So I follow the cord and find the whale tank that's powering the thing. I hop down to... Really? Fortunately for me, the guy who's pacing the area is the one with the key. So while he's walking away, I snatch the key, go back to the tank cover, open it up, take the whale oil out, and then thankfully I can pull the lever and enter the... God, I love being stealthy. With that done, we can sneak inside the building proper, finally, and be instantly greeted by the sight of bloodied whale remains. Charming. As we manage to find our way inside of the massive slaughterhouse, the first thing you might notice, other than the whale guts, is the living whale hanging from the ceiling. Even more messed up, the reason why they don't just kill the thing is because, according to this letter by Sokolov, what a nice man, the best way to squeeze the most amount of whale oil out of the thing as possible is to slowly torture the poor bastard to death. Considering the name of the owner of this place is Rothwild, Arcane was about as subtle as a brick with this metaphor. Speaking of rich evil overlords, we make our way to the main office of the joint where we can see a very kind man, I assure you, having an argument with this woman over here. After talking to both of them and realizing neither will give me the information I want without some sort of deal, I decide to go ahead and knock out both and take our friend here to the, interrogation room. This guy really is a piece of shit, oh my god. Well, after some questioning, we figure out that the Delilah was named after a woman the previous owner was obsessed with. Rothwild is even so kind as to give us the name and address of the man, and as thanks for his help, I decide to, instead of slitting the man's throat, have him shipped to some far-off corner of the world where he can never bother anyone again. With all that said and done, I decide to put the whale here out of its misery and finish the killing before making our escape. On my way out, I happen to stumble upon an abandoned cauldron with a recipe from Granny Rags. It appears that she's missing a very important ingredient for her world-famous apple pie, and of course, being the helpful man I am, I decide to go and pick that up for her. What ingredient could she be missing? Egg, sugar, cinnamon... Only the classic eye of a whale, you goober. Every apple pie needs one of these. With that done, we can finally head back to the beginning of the mission and breathe a sigh of relief at being done with the first mission of the DLC. Moving on to the next, we can move our way to the legal district. Our target is a man known as Arnold Timsch, and it just so happens there's a family quarrel between him and his niece, Thalia, who has asked to meet with us in order to arrange a deal. Stepping out of the sewers, we have a look around and find the woman we're looking for currently being heckled by the fucking Topat clan. Dealing with the well-dressed men, including the sneaky bastards on the roof, we can talk to the woman who has a deal for us. She needs her uncle eliminated. If we can do that, she'll tell us everything she knows about Delilah. There's a bit more to it than that, but those are the important parts of the arrangements. With that, we head into the sewers and climb over rooftops. You know the gist. The thing is, in order to get to the area with the manor, we're going to need a key. So I go to the captain's quarter to take his key, and the Top Hat clan has done it again. Well, somehow managing to bumble my way into the exact right apartment, I grab the key without ever needing to interact with the leader or his right-hand man, and head toward the area with our target. As we're moving around, I manage to overhear some guards talking about a man they arrested who they believe used to work with our target. My interest piqued, I decide to grab the key off of one guard after what feels like an eternity of waiting and sneak my way into the prison cell holding the man. This guy absolutely hates Timsch. He doesn't want the man dead, he wants Timsch's life ruined. To put a long story short, Timsch essentially earned his riches by forcing out all the other people in this district, then buying up their now vacant homes in order to rent out / flip for a profit. In short, the man is a landlord, truly the absolute scum of society. But this guy, he's got a plan. With the help of some disgusting, rotting, whatever the hell is in this bag, and with some forged papers planted on Timsch, we can ruin him in the same way. His title and all of his wealth will be stripped from him. And honestly, I love this idea much more than killing the bastard, so I take him up on the offer. With that, we head out, make our way to a ruined apartment, and grabbing said smelly bag, and while we're here, I decide to open up the secret passageway and have a lovely discussion with the outsider. While the conversation itself is whatever, your typical cryptic hoo-ha from the guy, we do learn an interesting tidbit in that other people just sort of see Dowd space out while he talks to the outsider like this, thanks to Billy having watched the whole thing. With all the stuff we need procured, we can hop into the mansion of the bastard, and I happen upon this statue of a woman. Okay, look, I've played Dishonored 2, I know this is Delilah, but we can actually speak to her through the statue, and it is honestly one of the coolest moments of the campaign. It definitely caught me by surprise. She doesn't end up saying much though, just some jibes and taunts at us, before telling us not to get in her way. With that, we execute the plan. We knock out Timsch, plant the fake papers on him, take the smelly bag and throw it into the air conditioning, making the entire building smell like your typical Smash tournament. Then we can head outside and watch the absolute carnage unfold.
Things up for you. The Regents arranged it. By the way, I don't think I ever got your first name.
What is this? Is this a joke?
I am not sure what you find funny about it.
Barrister Timsch, this is a letter from the Lord Regent dated a month ago, stating that your building is to be seized by the state immediately due to massive infection outbreak, and that your personal assets are forfeit if you do not comply immediately. A month ago? Are you showing me this to try to convince me that you're above the law?
What? Let me see that. This isn't possible.
Barrister, I am afraid I am going to have to take you into custody. And if I or any of my men contract the plague because of this visit, I'll see that your head rolls.
No. This isn't the right document.
Get him out of here before he starts bleeding from the eyes. And secure this court. It's under quarantine.
Yes, sir.
Oh, also while we're here, we can have another side quest from Granny Rags. It's pretty simple. We just need to take the world card from the tarot deck in the mansion, take it back to the hidden shrine, then bleed on it a little bit. With that done, we can go back and talk to Thalia, who tells us everything she knows about Delilah. The information she gives us is useful, namely she names off an old abandoned mansion that Delilah was seen at. She also talks about a seance used to summon Delilah so her and all her rich friends could have the equivalent of a telephone, just with magic voodoo stuff instead of actual phones. And honestly, I think that's super cool foreshadowing to what we see in the second game. With that done, we talk to Billy and we head back home, ready to handle the next and final mission for the first DLC. As we head back to the Flooded District, there's a problem. All of our assassins have either been captured or worse, been killed, and the entire area has been overrun by overseers currently waiting to try and ambush Dowd. I'll be honest, there's not a ton to go over for this level itself. It's just a lot of running around, knocking out overseers, then freeing assassins. Do that around 5 times and knock out the leader, and we can meet up with the gang. Doing so, we can tell our boys to knock out the rest of the remaining overseers. That's not me knocking the level, by the way. It's my favorite from the first half of the DLC, and it has some cool aspects to it. For example, there is some RNG to where your assassins can spawn, which I found out because I had to replay the entire level because I accidentally killed someone my first time. Not that I minded too much this time. This is easily one of the shortest levels in the franchise. It's like 30 minutes long, so it wasn't that big of a deal. Anyhow, with the Overseers handled, we have a discussion with our assassins. See, the Overseers couldn't have possibly hoped to have found us, not without someone on the inside tipping them off to our whereabouts. Bringing this up, it doesn't take long for the main culprit to step forward and admit to their sins, and it's none other than our right-hand man, Billy Lurk. I find this even more heartbreaking because we literally just saved her life from a group of overseers 2 missions ago, as she was surrounded and brutally tortured. Billy, like the conniving, bloodthirsty bastard we raised her to be, stabbed us in the back the moment she thought she could really gain something out of it. As we decide to let her go instead of taking her life, Delilah shows up and taunts us one last time, essentially telling us next time we get in her way, we won't be so lucky. With that, Billy disappears into the night and ends the Knife of Dunwall DLC. Okay, so my thoughts for this DLC overall. While it had some cool moments and I enjoyed aspects of it, I was kind of disappointed with it. I didn't talk about it, but the mission with Timpsh, the beginning of that mission was god awful. I didn't have full-on time stop at the time, so the only way I could see to get past the wall of light was to slowly chip away at every single guard in front of it. It wasn't fun, it wasn't interesting, it was a whole lot of back and forth and busy work. Sure, the level got better after that, but it still didn't stop the section from feeling like a massive waste of time and just terrible from a game design perspective. Maybe there was some way to sneak by that I couldn't spot. That's entirely possible, but I did look for some other way around and I couldn't see it, so... It also didn't help that not a lot really happens in the narrative. All we do is find out someone who is obsessed with Delilah, we get the answer to her whereabouts, then we get stabbed in the back by our second in command. I feel like I'm missing something here, because I remember hearing people rave about this DLC back in the day. Other than getting to see Delilah before Dishonored 2, I honestly don't see it. But hey, maybe the second DLC, Brigmore Witches, will be better. Firing up Brigmore Witches for the first time, one thing I'm pleasantly surprised to see is that we're given the option to carry over the save data from the previous DLC, saving any upgrades, bone charms, and whatever chaos level we had. As we start the game, I'm instantly confused because Dowd calls Corvo a mad killer when, like, no? I killed literally 0 people in my playthrough, and I'm fairly certain canonically Corvo only kills like 1 person throughout the entire first game. Like, why? Even better, as the cutscene ends, we're immediately thrust into a fight with said Mad Killer, and holy shit, I actually have no idea how to fight in this game. I never had to use the combat controls. Thankfully, from what I can tell, this is a scripted loss. Or at least, that's what I'm going with, and after we got our ass beat, we wake up and run around our base, grabbing some supplies, getting ready for our first mission. A thing to note, this DLC adds a couple of unique features, namely it introduces corrupted bone charms. These little buggers typically give you bigger boons than your average everyday bone charm, but it comes with some negative effect as a trade-off. In my opinion, there really isn't a corrupted bone charm I bothered using, as the benefit never really outweighed the curse. Also, since we're talking about new stuff, there is a new power we get exclusive to this DLC, Pull. Pull allows us to pull in items from very far away and not having to physically go grab them. Upgraded, the power allows you to grab people. While I never bothered with the upgraded version because, well, I was scared it'd mess up my ghost progress, using it to pull items to me from a distance though, yeah, I loved that actually. It was super nice not having to risk exposing myself and just grabbing the thing I wanted. With our own base picked clean, we could talk to our new right-hand man who is sadly not as cool as Billy, but hey, at least he doesn't stab us in the back. Probably. Like last time, we can buy favors, and this time I feel like it's a bit more impactful. Namely, for the first mission. We can skip the first section of the level by wearing a disguise, and I have to ask, why was this never a method we used in any other entry in the series? Like, this is such a basic concept for stealth, and this is the only time in the entire franchise it's ever used, outside of the one Boyle party. Regardless, let's actually, discuss the mission. We know where Delilah is now, but the issue is, we gotta find a way to get there, and to get there, we need a boat. The hard part, though, is that the best person we know who can use their ship to get us to Delilah is currently in prison. So, first thing we gotta do is bust him out, and that's where the disguise comes in. See, some real weird arcane shit happened in the prison, and as a result, they sent for the overseers to come and try and exorcise the stuff. So, we can pull a favor and have the lone overseer jumped on his way to the prison and take that uniform, allowing us to just walk right into one of the most heavily guarded facilities in the entire country. We can actually check out what this magical nonsense the guards were raving about while we were here, and...
Comfortable? Alright, we'll get this done. Let's start with how you got it.
Holy shit, no wonder they called the priest for this. We're not here to fix this mess, so we step out, probably with some excuse about needing a bigger cross, and sneak into the area holding all the cells. Keep in mind, we're not supposed to be here, so yes, we do actually need to sneak. We're only supposed to be dealing with that devil nonsense in the other room. So, moving along, we can eventually find Lizzie, our target, in cell number A00. With that in mind, we can run back to the control room, and using the lever system and setting it to the previously stated number, we can open up the door and talk to our quarry. Doing so, the first thing you'll notice is how sharp her teeth are. God, woman, how the hell did you even manage that? Second thing you'll notice is that, well...
Down. I think
I'll have to carry her out.
We're going to have to carry her out. I still appreciate this. While she's no Emily, this is still better than 99% of escort missions out there. Yes, I would literally rather have the person I'm escorting be dead weight that I have to physically carry than have to deal with trying to protect someone with the IQ of 10 and just sits there as they're pelted by 20 different enemies. Cool note, if you chose to have Timch arrested, like I did, you can actually see him in one of the cells here. Anyhow, with Lizzie in hand, I'm able to, somehow, sneak my way out of the prison without ever being spotted, which is especially difficult when you remember that the bridge right outside the front door, all magic is blocked, so no teleporting or time stop. Just patience and good timing. Disappearing into the sewers, we have officially finished the first mission of the Brigmore Witches, and I'm pretty hopeful for the rest. I actually really enjoyed the first mission. It was short, yes, but it had some creative choices and interesting layouts to it. With Lizzie safely returned, we now have the problem of getting her boat back. See, she was like us, betrayed by her right-hand man, but unlike us, she actually lost and had the ship taken from her. So we gotta deal with that old friend of hers, which is also not going to be easy because there's a gang war between her group, known as the Eels, and the Topat clan. So that's also something we'll most likely need to deal with. As we move through the streets, I managed to accidentally stumble upon a man who claims he was once a dressmaker for the royal family until his hands hurt too much to do the job. One interesting thing about him is that his most precious possession from his time as a royal tailor was a single lock of Emily's hair. Dude, what the fuck? Sadly, I guess, he no longer has that. It seems it was stolen by Delilah. For what purpose? I have no idea. But if witches are involved, it can't be good. Also, along the way to the boat, we can spot an interesting figure on the rooftop nearby, but just as quickly as they show up, they disappear. In their place, however, they do leave behind a corrupted bone charm. At the boat itself, our main objectives are simple. Deal with Ed, the previous second in command, then blow the horn to tell Lizzie the job's been done. Thankfully, we don't have to actually kill Ed. We can just as easily choke him out, and the game takes that just fine. With the signal given, Lizzie shows up and takes control. As she rouses her subordinates back into command, demanding one of them cut off a finger too, hardcore, she tells us that there's another problem, because of course there is. Turns out that Ed, in all his wisdom, sold the engine coil to the Topat clan. Without that, we can't actually pilot the damn boat. Now we gotta go to the old textile factory and see if we can get that coil back. Sneaking through the factory, we can eventually talk to the leader of the Topat clan, who decides not to even wear a Topat, bastard, and we ask for a deal. He tells us that he is willing to give us the coil back, but only if we can get the water wheels in the sewers turning again. He also informs us that he had sent some men down there earlier to look at the problem, but they never came back. So, you know, be on the lookout for that. With that in mind, we take the sewer key the man gave us and walk down into an even more rank, disgusting sewers. Dude, it never stops with these things. Well, as we move forward, we eventually happen upon an interesting room. There's a lone woman sitting in the center of some sort of platform just singing to herself, and not trusting that shit, I instantly pull out a sleep dart and knock the bitch out. So I don't think this counts as a spoiler or anything, but this is a witch. Yeah, I know, weird, right? In the DLC named Witches of Brigmore, we can have witch enemies. Shocking. These ladies are essentially assassins from the base game, but instead of having weapons, they're just all magic. As such, they're probably the most dangerous enemies in this game, at least if you're trying to never get caught. As we continue on through the sludge, we actually get a chance to talk to Delia via statue again, which is just here in the sewer for some reason. She doesn't really have much to say, it's just more gloating as per usual with this chick. So we grab some stuff and continue on, eventually happening upon the room with said water wheels, knocking out the 2 witches inside after like 10 tries. I have no idea why I struggled with this for so long, if I'm honest. I discover these things are missing power. So I head downstairs, grab some whale oil, plug them in, head upstairs, and the damn things still don't want to move. Admittedly, it took me a while to spot the problem. It turns out there's vines growing over the wheels themselves, not allowing them to turn. So slapping those away, we finally get these things turning and can get our engine coil from the Top Hat clan. As thanks for helping them, actually chooses to end all gang violence between themselves and the eels, at least for the time being, allowing us to walk through the streets safely with no one harassing us. As we turn the coil into Lizzie, we instantly get ambushed by some of Delilah's witches, ruining my ghost run. So, I load a previous save, turn in the coil, then instantly stop time and run like a bitch. Thankfully, my plan worked perfectly, and the eels ended up killing the witches without them ever spotting me. Best part is, it doesn't go against my clean hands achievement either, since I'm not the one who killed them. With those ladies handled, we can finally move on and head upriver to Brigmore Mansion. As we arrive at the mansion, we can sneak into the main grounds via a hole in the front wall. Great, but unfortunately, we can't actually get into the manor itself because the door is locked. Thankfully, however, we have an informant we can talk to who tells us of a secret passage we can use to enter. Grabbing the lever, making sure not to trip the explosives guarding it, we can go back to the front yard, plug it in, and enter the manor via its basement. Man, Delilah, I love what you've done with the place. Honestly, it looks only slightly worse than my college dorm room. Moving through the manor, discovering what little tidbits we can about Delilah is doing, we manage to gather that she's inside one of her paintings and that in order to reach her, we're going to need the help of this strange lantern. Grabbing it, we make our way to the painting Delilah is in, and using our newly acquired lantern, we can actually hop on into the painted world.
Let's go!
As we arrive, we're greeted by the outsider one last time. He talks to us about how Delilah likes to insert her will into her paintings, whatever her subject, and considering her latest subject is Emily, that's not good. With that in mind, we take off and hop into the painted world proper. If you haven't pieced it together yet, by spying on Delilah, she outright spells it out what she's going to do. She's going to take over Emily's body and, by doing that, seize the Empire for herself. This ritual is the final step in that plan, but as she's busy with her current painting, we can sneak by and grab this other one she made in the back, waiting for the perfect moment. And by that, I mean throwing a grenade to catch Delilah's attention for a second. I don't trust Time Stop to work on her. I sneak up, swap her painting for the other one she had, and watch patiently as she finishes her ritual. Fortunately, she doesn't notice the swap until it's too late, and instead of bonding herself with Emily like she intended, because her other painting was of the void, she ends up becoming one with the void itself, essentially killing her. And we never heard from Delilah again.
Your rightful empress, Delilah Caldwin.
My dearest niece, hello.
With that done, the game wraps up with Corvo confronting Dowd once again in a fight. Dowd, expecting Corvo to kill him, and rightfully so for all the things he's done, is surprised when he simply walks away, showing Dowd a mercy he probably doesn't deserve. And with that, after the credits roll, we can see Dowd visiting Jessamine's grave and dropping off his sword, tired of killing and ready to move on with his life. For the second DLC, I was much more impressed. I enjoyed the second half much more than the first. I thought the level designs were much more well thought out, especially in the second mission. Very interesting set pieces, one of the most satisfying final bosses in a stealth game, a cool character to control, and overall, it was a good experience that I feel genuinely added to the base game. Honestly, I feel like Knife of Dunwall was unnecessary. The only part of that DLC that was relevant plot-wise was Billy betraying Dowd and regretting her actions, but the rest of it you could easily cut out and not really miss anything. The witches, though, that actually adds something to the overall lore. The fact that Dowd saved Emily's life and nobody will ever know. The fact he will forever be known as only the killer of the beloved Empress Jessamine. I can definitely see why people like this DLC particularly so much. As for the base game, I love it, but I still think the second game is overall a better experience, at least for me. While I think this game is very well crafted and can certainly see why people sing its high praises, I just think the improved level design in 2 elevates that to a whole new level. Also, this is going to be a bit of a hot take, but I actually like the Outsider's voice actor in the sequel more than in this game. I understand why people prefer this one. He sounds more detached and uncaring, which is kind of the point of his character, but I don't know, I just kind of think he sounds better in the second. I can't really put my finger on it, so, you know, take that opinion with a grain of salt. But let's look at what this game did that made it stand out better than its sequel, starting with the atmosphere. The dark and oppressive atmosphere of this game is genuinely unmatched. The world feels like it's at the brink of a collapse and that you, somehow, have to prevent everything from falling apart. People are dying in the streets, plague victims are running around, gang violence is everywhere, rats are eating people alive. The place is fucked. It's such a unique feel to any world, and I can't think of any game that I've played that even comes close to matching it. I also think, while they're not as good as the sequels, the level designs in this game are still excellent. For the most part, there are plenty of ways to complete your objectives, little secret paths, or creative ways to use your powers in order to do whatever it is you need to do. But I'm going to add a little caveat here. I don't think this game has any real standout levels. There isn't a single mission here I think, oh man, I can't wait to do that mission again. It's so cool. Dishonored 2, meanwhile, has 2 missions that I just can't get enough of, with the Jindosh Manor as well as the Stilton Manor. None of the levels in the first game are downright bad, not by a long shot, but none of them are going to blow you away either, at least in my opinion. I do think the mercy neutralizations in this game are iconic. For basically all of them, killing your target would be a mercy, but no. Instead, we go out of our way to absolutely ruin their lives. Campbell is forced into a life of begging on the streets. The Pendleton twins are forced to work in the mines with their tongues cut out. Boyle is given to her stalker. It's honestly insane how much more brutal some of these neutralizations are. I love it. I think it adds so much to the oppressive atmosphere. And I think that's it. Overall, Dishonored is a fantastic experience. I adore this game, especially since it's one of the best stealth games on the market. It has its flaws, absolutely, but it's a classic. If you're a fan of either stealth games or immersive sims and you somehow haven't played this game yet, what are you doing? Go pick it up already. Play it right now. It is outstanding. The world, the characters, the level design, the cool powers, all of it is really, really good. And it was an excellent start to one of my favorite franchises of all time. With that said, thank you for watching. Please remember to subscribe if you haven't already, and have a good night.